A hard-fought game out at BMO Field by the Edmonton Elks, but ultimately they're 0-3 on the season as they fall to the Toronto Argonauts 39-36. Welcome to the Green and Gold Postgame Show live out here on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, on TuneIn, on iHeartRadio, as well as those watching us on YouTube, Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, where every day is game day. I said to Jay earlier that I've noticed it's very noticeable our height difference here, and I might need to get a booster seat. So he's, of course, going to rub that in on me on YouTube and really sit up tall. Lots of comments coming in on the Nasty Chat. Paris Jewelers inbox 780-218-9999 is how you could get in touch with us as we will break down this game by the Edmonton Elks. We will get to 3 reasons why the Elks lost today. But with this, I'd like to bring Jay in here. Your thoughts on this wild back-and-forth game we saw out at BMO?
Yeah, I mean, the effort was there. It was an incredible game to watch as a fan. If
football.
You can't say that, you'd be ignorant or blind. I don't know, but one of them. But yeah, it's you know what? It's now a pattern. It's now a pattern, and patterns are problematic when they're not in your favor. And the same pattern that is happening through all 3 games is that the team is not all 3 facets of the game, special teams, defense, offense, are not on the same page at the same time. And that's problematic. I get it, you're 0-3. They could have won tonight. They could have won in week 2. They could have won week 1. But they didn't, and they haven't. And now they're 0-3. And I can't help but think of a text. I think we received it after last week's game, where it was that this team is continually finding ways to lose the game. They're not Rocky Balboa, where they're continually finding ways to win. They are finding ways to kick themselves in the foot and lose. Are the players responsible for that? Yeah, sure, they are. But at some point, you need to admit that this is a bigger, larger problem with culture, with leadership, and ultimately with coaching. So tonight was a big game. I said it. It was a must-win.
Yep.
And I still stand by that. I think it was a must-win.
The majority of our people that voted on our poll agreed with you.
Yeah.
I was on the flip side.
But I think there's too much going on at the top. And when I say the top, I'm referring to Chris Jones. Whether he resigns from one of his positions and stays in the other role, or, I don't know if just firing him is going to fix all your problems. A, I don't know who would replace him. And B...
Well, it depends which position. Like, are you firing from all of them?
No. I mean, I thought...
if you're firing him, you're actually getting rid of all of them. I should say that. Sorry.
But like,
if he steps away from one, that's where it depends which one. I could give you the names.
Right.
I could break down how I'd fire Chris Jones right now and how I would fill it out.
Well, before you go into your dissertation on Chris Jones, you've got to remember that, and I get it, this team has had struggles, whether it's, Kai Gray taking a 15-yard penalty after they get a second down stop.
And then gets beat.
And then gets beat for the touchdown, where it's Bynum with a misinterception with a minute 17 in the first half.
You got DeBlanco's
would have been on the
contact.
Edmonton 40. Instead, they punt, and then another penalty, and they backed them up to the 3-yard line just before the end of the first half. You've got DeBlanco's penalty, which I
it doesn't immediately hurt.
It didn't,
but
still,
it had a long-term impact because they could have punted, and the Argos went to pin the Elks deep.
Yeah,
but instead they got to extend it. Ended up having to punt, and were able to pin them deep. And then when they got the ball back, they were right in field goal range.
Well, it extended it kept, like, there was several times tonight where errors and mental errors extended Toronto's drives. Mm-hmm. I mean, we were talking about it early, but Cameron Dukes did not blow anybody's hair back tonight.
He impressed more in the second half. But in the first half, especially, he was, I think, 9 of 10.
9 of 10,
which
for
wasn't
97
wasn't
yards.
bad. Like, but he had a, I don't remember if it was at that time or if later. There's a couple incompletions that didn't get credit to him for various reasons. Well, actually, in that half, it would have been one because there was the defensive pass interference call that the Elks got called against, and I still don't know how that was defensive pass interference. Quickly on the side note on that, I don't think that was the receiver he was throwing to. I think at best that was illegal contact on a receiver. I don't believe that was a catchable football. And to your point, you don't even think that's pass interference. Like, you don't think that was anything.
No.
I have no idea how that was called a DPI in any way, shape, or form. But Cameron Duke's 9 of 10 in that first half. It wasn't anything special. Second half, he made some plays. I think the bigger part to this, though, is the Elks offense went out and scored touchdowns 4 times this game.
Yep.
Where immediately on the next drive, the Toronto Argonauts offense was allowed to drive down the field and match it and get another touchdown. And that's last week, we were critical of the offense. We were critical of McLeod Bethel-Thompson. We were critical of Dylan Mitchell's drop. We looked at them and said, if your defense is going to give up 23 points, you will take that. That defense had a little bit of issues with Fletcher, but if you're going to give up 23 points, that's a solid defensive performance. After 3 turnovers last week, they didn't give up any points off of those. This week, it's reverse. The offense played great.
Yep.
McLeod Bethel-Thompson, I could nitpick, and I'll do that later, his performance, but he ultimately then did throw for 4 touchdowns and over 300 yards. This team did put up 36 points. Well, if I'm his throws were, he threw a lot of inaccurate throws, including a touchdown to Dylan Mitchell. Like, that's where I'm nitpicking, but I don't want to. You're dragging me there right now. I said I would get to it later.
Yeah,
you're dragging me into it right now, Jay.
There's no reason to nitpick the play of McLeod Bethel-Thompson tonight. Like, come on.
Long term,
4 touchdowns, no interceptions.
He also underthrew and missed those receivers quite a few times.
No.
But I don't want to go there right now. I don't want to go there right now.
All right, fine.
But the offense did its job. But defensively, again, your offense scores points, and you immediately lose the momentum because you allowed the Toronto Argonauts to go down the field. Whether it was by poor play or by making the mistakes, like penalties or broken coverages. It was the run defense. Now, I will go last week. I was giving them the pass for the Walter Fletcher. But now, what was it? What did I have? 109 yards or 106 yards after the first half. Just the first half of rushing yards they allowed. Today, overall, the Edmonton Elks gave up 186 rushing yards. They couldn't stop the ball running-wise. And now if I add into last week, that is a major concern for me moving forward because I could point to now 2 big weeks, back-to-back weeks where the running backs got to the Edmonton Elks defense. That's a concern. And yet they found another way to lose. But it's also, like, I know there's going to be a lot of criticism of Chris Jones. I know there's going to be a lot of firing Chris Jones. My brother and dad both have texted me separately going, fire Chris Jones immediately. The one thing I will say on Chris Jones right now, they ultimately were close in 3 games. This is an improved football team based on on-field performance from last year through 3 games. I will give them that. The results, though, are the exact same, though, 0-3, so there is that there. But to me, what tonight gave me, barring an absolute blowout on Thursday against the BC Lions, Chris Jones...
Short week, too.
But it's... If I'm giving him the bye week, he gets Ottawa. He gets to come back and coach against Ottawa because the team that we saw the last 3 weeks against Ottawa, Hamilton, Saskatchewan... They're going to go 3-1 or 4-0. That if they drop to 0-4, they're back to 500, and we'll see what the rest of the season goes. But they have to go win that Ottawa game because if you drop it to Ottawa, then it's I'm gone. Chris Jones will have lost me there. But what today did for me personally, it says I'm seeing them move forward. They are progressing. But how much longer do you get the runway to do that? And that's where, like, before I would have always said 0-4 going into the bye week. I think I would make that change. I think I could give him that 1 game after the bye week. And I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear that part, but Dusty texted us right before we went on the air. Hot take. But tell me where he's wrong. The 0-3 Elks are better than the 0-3 Bombers.
He's not wrong. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. They're 0-3, but these have been pretty entertaining games, and I know that's not what, as an Elks fan, you want to hear particularly. But, I mean, it's just, I guess how long are you going to live with this inability to finish and inability to win? I mean, yeah, they're close, but we've said it from the start. They continually find ways to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's a mentality issue. That's a swagger. You don't have that swagger as a member of the Edmonton Elks right now, and it's coming from somewhere. Obviously, you got to look to the top. You've said it several times.
But that's been here before Chris Jones. It was here with Jamie Elizondo, too.
I know, but if you sucked ass at your job, people would point fingers at Dustin because he's the boss man.
Well, I think
right?
I think there's a few people that would say I suck ass at my job. So
don't say that, man.
Don't say if.
If, yeah, right.
Okay, but here's
what I mean, right?
I have a question for that, though. Is this Chris Jones, general manager, not bringing in the right people? Is this Chris Jones, the head coach, not getting the best out of his team for this?
I think it's Chris Jones and the staff that he has surrounded him with. I mean, you look at what happens on defense and special teams. Other than the actual returners, everything else seems to be a dumpster fire based on the week. I mean, yeah, okay, you have Purifoy that intercepts at 9:35 in the third quarter. That turns into a big score by the Elks to tie the game up. Then 8-play, 89-yard drive, which was run heavy, and they come back and they take the lead again. I mean, there's not much blaming of the Edmonton offense that you can do right now
for today's game.
And we said that. We said MBT has been a bit Jekyll and Hyde this season. Well, today he was the better. I don't know which one's the better, Jekyll or Hyde.
I'm assuming the first one's better.
Jekyll?
I'm assuming.
Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Jekyll.
I'm assuming that you would go good, bad.
Okay, so
I would assume
today he was Jekyll.
Somebody will
forgive me if I'm wrong,
but
you get my point.
And that's where it's disappointing is that what MBT are you going to get? Have they wasted the two good MBTs so far? How many of those Dr. Jekylls are you going to get this year? I'd say you get 10. Well, you're down to 8 possible wins. That's it. You're going to have to find a way to win when he's not performing, and it's such a. I figured if they were 0-3 by now in this season, we saw at least 1 or 2 big blowouts. And it would be a lot easier for me to call out Chris Jones and changes needed.
These have all been one-score losses.
Really saying Trey Ford needs to be the starting quarterback of this team. Like, I can't say that at this moment right now, though. That's the thing.
No, you can't.
And that's where it's this spot for this team where it's, if you're Rick Lawlisher, I don't know what you do. Because you can't let this continue this way, but you also see the results and go, but they're winning. Or not winning, I shouldn't say. They're playing better. They no one could actually sit there right now and say this team is a worse football team than last season.
No,
you just can't. You have not watched.
It's not
you
there.
have not watched that though any of the games.
No, statistically.
Well,
it's
test.
not even close.
I'm just going with pure eye test. Even
Sure.
There's no way you could have watched any of those games and say this team is now worse, equal to or worse than last year. They are better, and it's not by a small margin. They're quite a bit better.
Yeah, by about 50%.
But at some point, those results need to happen because Chris Jones came in, part of the signing of MBT. We need a win now. And ultimately, you are 0-3. I want to jump in the nasty chat before we continue our chat here. We'll just break down, I think, live on the air. What are the 3 reasons this team lost? I have a couple of reasons to start this. Penner's Pancakes in the nasty chat, my lord, it looks like they are looking for creative ways to lose every single game. This is disturbing already. Yes, into the wind, but they have to find a way to get a field goal at the end there. I'll also just even at the end of the first half, 51, 52-yard field goal attempt. Wind must have been a factor in that as why they didn't send out Beatty and instead tried going deep. MBT got sacked, but not going for a field goal late in that at the dying seconds of the first half. Derek saying there's a world where they're 3-0. Lack of discipline and execution down the stretch cost them once again. VR Montenegro, I've seen enough. Give me Ford. MBT got lucky and should have at least 2 more interceptions. JL 0-3 to start 3 seasons in a row. How much more do you need to see before you fire Jones? Reg Dunlop, don't worry, Edmonton fans. You'll still be ahead of Winnipeg in the power rankings. I'll be interested on that one. Big Uke, such a gut punch. What an unfortunate record to start the year again. I do want to now jump also into the Paris Jewelers inbox, 780-218-9999. Shoggy in St. Albert. I don't think that's Ryan Rashog, but Shoggy in St. Albert. Another loss already at the all-too-familiar 0-3 to start the season. You guys are going to bring up the positives again or the big picture negative of they cannot win a game. Opponents late in the game go, that's enough of that, and just take over the game. Good teams find a way to win. Elks do the opposite and find a way to lose in key moments of the game in exciting new ways. MBT is serviceable, but in a one-year Band-Aid when you should be giving Ford the experience to grow into a great QB. MBT won't be here next year, so wasted a year of Ford. We take in bets on how many losses at the beginning of the year before Chris Jones is finally gone. Babouche Stash in. He was in also during the kickoff show. Entertaining game again. Fun team to watch these Elks, man. I'm with you guys with the weaker teams coming after the bye. The Elks could be 4-4. It's a long season. The schedule has been tough to start. And we hit the cool bet hotline of the day with the Gittins touchdown. So you guys did hit that one. And then Ian.
We hit it.
Well, thank you for that one. Thank you for that one.
Come on, best friends
my
forever.
prop didn't work, and the game day parlay weren't there yet. I still think with the fan base, if they go 0-4, they need to change Jones. That might be enough to get fans to slowly come back. That coming in from Ian. Right now, July 14th, I'm not going to expect a great crowd at Commonwealth. This team is going to be at best 1-3, at best, coming off a bye week, and it's Ottawa coming to town. Not exactly a sexy sell. I don't know if Rick Lawlisher. I don't know if you have to do that just for the sake of. I don't think it brings anyone back right away. I don't think getting rid of Chris Jones, all of a sudden fans are going to be back at Commonwealth. It's going to be winning. It's winning those football games. And ultimately, if this team goes 4-4 after a bye week, I think fans would return. So that's where I give him that Ottawa game. I do right now. Because if he loses that one, there's no selling that to me. There's no saying I don't care about the stats at that point. I don't care about the eye test. You're not winning football games. Just to develop Trey Ford the rest of the season and make the change. But if you win that, then okay, maybe you go win the second against Ottawa, and then maybe you go beat Hamilton, then maybe you beat Saskatchewan, and all of a sudden you're 4-4. And you've clawed your way back, and we'll see what the rest of this season is. Go back to this season has gone in a way that I expected of the 0-3, but it hasn't reached 0-3 the way I expected.
Which is fair. I mean, I guess, obviously I was more optimistic, thinking that they could and should have.
And how did that go for you?
I'll still be optimistic. That's just my personality, dog. You ain't gonna take that away from me, even if you're grumpy, even if you're a grumpy old bastard like you are. You're not gonna steal my shine.
I think there's a few people that want to get positivity in me.
Well, I get it, and at the end of the day, people are ticked off. People are upset. I don't agree with the take that this is wasting a year of Trey Ford.
I disagree on that. Continue.
You agree that it is a waste of Trey Ford?
Yeah.
A waste of what?
Of development.
Development. Do you know how much he's developing? Sitting behind and watching MBT throw the ball as a pocket passer in practice?
I'll let you continue on this because I will go off right now for a few minutes.
Okay, sure. I don't think it's a waste of Trey Ford's a year. Everybody's like, oh, he's he's the future. So then slow down. Let him develop in a practice role, which would not overwhelm him. And the stats from last year, I mean, if Trey Ford was starting tonight, do you think that's the score? Or you think they win? I will flip this. Yeah, I'll check,
but I'll counter this very simply.
Okay, even though MBT was 73%, 342 yards, 0 interceptions, 4 touchdowns, and an efficiency rating of 136.1. But yet, some people, not all, some people think that you're wasting a year of Trey Ford. I would never say you're wasting anything. He's young. If he's the future of this, let's say this as well. Let's say he sits on the bench for the rest of the year. The Elks turn it around and they're 4-4, like you suggested, and they turn things around. He's sitting on the bench. Do you think some team next year is going to step up and pay him mass dollars when he's an unproven quarterback in this league? He's played how many games?
This is games played but not games started, I don't think. 29 career. Which is McLeod Bethel Thompson just played in his 50th.
Yeah.
Let's see what they have. 77 for him. Okay, so that's not all starts. I don't have his official game starts because the CFL doesn't do those well. Don't get me started on that one.
But if you're saying that, okay, so if You think that Commonwealth Stadium's going to be full if they announce that Trey Ford's a starter?
No, here's where I'll start there, and then I'll go back to why they're wasting Trey Ford.
Yep.
I feel bad for Trey Ford because now there's all this pressure. It happened last year. People wanted him. He came in. He actually won some football games, got people excited. That Labor Day rematch, people came out to Commonwealth. It was a legit 31,000 crowd or something in that range. People were pumped. People were excited because he was exciting. He was fun to watch, and the team had just won 2 of their prior 3 games, and they almost won that Labor Day game. They almost had a 3-game winning streak into there, and that buzz came. That's why I know fans will come back if this team starts winning, because last year it was right there. And now, though, there's all this pressure, and he's going to have to be the savior once again, potentially. Potentially. I'm not saying for sure, but there might be a point where he has to be the savior, and if he stumbles right off the bat, or if there's a lot of pressure, he's got to do it a second year in a row. There's just this added weight to the franchise put on him that I think is a little too soon in that regard. And that's where I don't like the position he's now being put in that Chris Jones has put this whole franchise in.
If he's the second coming of Christ
but that's not
at
the
quarterback, then you should want him to have all the pressure on him.
Here is why this,
because he's the best.
Here
really
is
good.
why
he's
he's losing development here. One of the things I kept hearing from people that when he wasn't given the starting job was he needs to keep learning. He doesn't have enough games. Well, you can't get enough games if you don't play in enough games. And ultimately, he has 5 more wins as a starting quarterback with the Edmonton Elks than McLeod Bethel-Thompson. This franchise has won 8 games in the last 2 years, or 3 years now. I could add this season into there now. They've won 8 games with Chris Jones back. 5 of them with Trey Ford. Here is why I say this is a wasted development year, and I'm not even going to take away that him leaving at the end of this season potentially, which I think is a big part of this, though, that he doesn't – him and Chris Jones, clearly that Chris Jones doesn't like him, and why would he stay? Why would he sign to stick around this franchise? But McLeod Bethel-Thompson's brought in to win. McLeod Bethel-Thompson was brought in here to bring this team to the playoffs. Yes, this team may have not won the last 3 games with Trey Ford and 0-3, which means they'd be in the exact same spot. They would also be 0-3. But the difference is, and the different thing that the fans would see, and the different things for this franchise is, you don't fully believe that Trey Ford is going to be that top-end quarterback in the Canadian Football League. I think he could be that top-end quarterback in the Canadian Football League. This season, we could learn that. This season could have been that season where we learned who and what is Trey Ford as a starting quarterback. And at the end of the year, if he's not the starting quarterback, if you are right, the team looks for a new quarterback next year. And I think, but there was at least an excitement to start this year. I'll say this. I don't think there would have been more fans at the Saskatchewan game because it went up against game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. I think the Montreal game, there might have been more fans. So from a business perspective, that could have been there. But you would have maybe had more interest in this franchise at this moment. And ultimately, if he is the quarterback, you've solved your quarterback position. But right now, with the way this season is progressing, if this team keeps going the way it is, they're going to be what? An 8-win football team still? Are you bringing back McLeod Bethel-Thompson next year?
I don't know. But
if so, how long does he have here? If not, well, now you're looking for a new quarterback. Or if you're going to Trey Ford next year, well, you're now a year later in the development of Trey Ford. Because you still don't fully know whether he could be the starting quarterback. And what if you go to Trey Ford next year and he's not that starting quarterback? Well, now you're waiting another year for a quarterback. Whereas this year, if you developed or attempt to develop Trey Ford, you learn who and what he is and whether you have the answer at quarterback or you still need to go find one next year. Because the thing is, they still might need to go find one next year, but Trey Ford's not starting. That's why it's a wasted year of Trey Ford, in my opinion.
I disagree. I think he could. I think he could develop at the same clip he is, sitting in practice behind McLeod Bethel-Thompson, who is, and I've said it all along. I just think in the CFL, you can have a mixture of pocket passer and mobility, but you can't have one or the other. Trey Ford would get the ball last year and would evacuate the pocket and not allow anything to happen with his offensive line. Now I get it.
But then how does he grow from that?
But that's not sustainable.
But how does he become that pocket quarterback
by doing exactly
without playing?
What they're doing? He's practicing. Matt, you don't understand how valuable practicing is in the CFL, in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith for a year and a half until injury forced him into the starting job. He did not go in because they're like, oh, we can't keep him practicing much longer. they were developing Patrick Mahomes until Alex Smith got injured and he was pressed into it. There is a large amount of development that can happen in a practice capacity.
And I'm not, but he's had a couple years of practice. I mean, last year he was a starter, and he was 4-5 as the starter. There's nothing to me that says he couldn't be the starter this year to allow the extra development and still learn in practice, but also get the game time experience as well. It's not like we have zero film on Trey Ford as a starting quarterback the last 2 years, and we're just throwing out there, well, look what he did at Waterloo. Or is it Western? I forgot which one he's from.
Waterloo.
Is it Waterloo?
Waterloo.
Like, we're not saying, oh, look at those highlights. Look how fast he is. We actually, 5 of the 8 wins that this team has had over the last years is him as starting quarterback. So why not continue with that development and see fully what you had, especially when he saved Chris Jones' job last year? That's where, to me, the development is. Now, are they 0-3 because Trey Ford isn't starting? No. Like, MBT has been good at 2 out of 3 games.
Yeah.
This week is on the defense. This isn't on the offense. This isn't on McLeod Bethel-Thompson.
This is the second time, I think.
And that's week 1. Week 2 was on the offense, and it was on MBT. But I do understand where people will sit there and say, you're wasting Trey Ford. I agree with that. You don't.
I couldn't disagree more, because you're not wasting him. He's not sitting there in his locker hanging his head and waiting to throw a ball. He's playing against CFL caliber players. Matt, do you think...
Can I actually go a different way of why they're wasting him then maybe a little bit too this year? Where are the packages to mix him into the games? You said it all offseason that he should have had some sort of packages.
I agree.
Why hasn't that been worked into the offense at all yet?
I agree. I don't know. That's a great question, because I thought if you have the mixture of the two, right, and even if things aren't going exactly like it was tonight for MBT, switch it up. Have a little bit of a run-pass option where you have a mobile quarterback. I'm 100% in agreement. He's dressed. He's on the sideline. He's dressed for every game. Why you don't have 1 or 2? I mean, hell, I don't even like Brew Cup coming in and doing the short yardage.
Hey, they've struggled with that. He's good at that, but he has struggled.
No, I don't like the way they do that, where they go left or right instead of just crashing far ahead. I'm not a fan. Why aren't you bringing a guy like Trey Ford in that can sit back there in a shotgun and run a full offense on that? And
we're a threat of actually throwing too.
A threat of
like
throwing.
when Jordan Lynch came in with Michael Riley back in 14-15.
Exactly.
He just ran.
Right.
But you knew he ran.
No, but
because he couldn't throw generally.
No, but there
were a couple times that he threw. But with Trey Ford, I think with Trey Ford, you're a little more confident if you're Jarius Jackson of his throwing ability than Jordan Lynch and Chris Jones. So why not get that in there?
No, I'm in agreement. Yeah.
We will get into the nasty chat. We'll continue in the Paris Jewelers inbox. I do want to quickly run through the stats as well. Reminder, this is the Green and Gold. Oh, I have the kickoff show on our screen. It's not the kickoff show. It's the postgame show. There we go. That's fixed now.
There you go. You got it.
For those watching on YouTube, you were seeing the kickoff show, but it's not. It's the postgame show. This is the Green and Gold postgame show. Iwanyk and Jay Milne with you live at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge just off Fort Road, where every day is a game day. Jay having a good day today. Troy having a good day today here at Century. I had the prime rib sandwich special, which was delicious. You had the pizza. Troy had the game day special of cheese and jalapeno smoky.
Lovely.
It was a great time here. So come on down. We're here all season long, pre and post game shows right here at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge. And we got all these TVs behind us, which is a great way to watch the games. Next one coming up on a Thursday is the Elks will take on the BC Lions. Just quickly running through the stats before we also have to go through our 3 reasons the Elks lost this game. McLeod Bethel-Thompson, 342 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kevin Brown leading the way, rushing 7 carries for 27 yards, although he did have 3 catches for 27 yards as well. Leading away receiving Dylan Mitchell, who had a really good bounce-back game. He did have a drop in there, but overall, he was fantastic. He had 120 yards as well as a touchdown. He also had a big touchdown that led to an Elks touchdown a little bit later. Was that one to Gittins? Yeah, that was the Gittins Jr. Mitchell had the big catch prior to that. Gittins Jr. had 6 catches for 52 yards and a touchdown. Hergy Mayala, 5 catches, 72 yards and a touchdown, as well as Gino Lewis, 32 yards and 1 touchdown. Defensively for the Elks, leading the way with defensive tackles. Leon O'Neal Jr., no, he was 8. You had Nick Anderson at 9, Elliott Brown with 7. When you look at the quarterback sacks, they got to Cameron Dukes 3 times, Elliott Brown once, and Noah Curtis got to him twice. Just looking at the Argos quickly, Cameron Dukes, 214 yards, 2 touchdowns. They did run a running back. Deontay McMahon threw the ball. He got picked. Luciez Purifoy with that interception. They ran really well today. McMahon, 50 yards as well as a touchdown. Kadeem Carey, 104 yards and a touchdown. He also caught the ball for 17 yards. It's wild, though, because DeMonte Coxey, 58 yards reception. That was the highest receiver of the Toronto Argonauts. The next closest, 28. That's it. They spread the ball out quite well, but it wasn't like, you look at the Toronto Argonauts putting up 39 points. As they defeat the Elks 39-36, 39 points, but 214 passing yards isn't a lot. So
not
a great running game performance. Also, when you look at the returns, Javon Leake was dangerous on almost every return.
Yeah, he's spectacular.
He had an average
he's a bright spot.
12 yards average on a punt return, so that's equals to more than just a single first down. And then on the kickoff return, averaging 20 yards.
I mean, you look at, well, okay. You look at the stats. I mean, first downs, 25 to 22 for Toronto. Second down conversion, 14 of 21 for Edmonton, 13 of 21 for Toronto. Offensive plays, 50 for Edmonton, 55 for Toronto. This comes down to, and I don't want to burst the bubble and get ahead of yourself or ourselves with the 3 reasons why they lost.
Well, let's start getting into this.
But let's
start going with the reasons and rank these after.
I'll tell you the biggest one. In my opinion, is the rushing problem.
Run defense?
Run defense and lack of run offense.
Okay. So there's 2.
That's a rushing problem. The Elks had 35 rushing yards. Toronto had 186. Elks rushed the ball 10 times.
And it was a point where the Elks, it was close or they had leads and they weren't rushing the football. You can't even say, like, in this game they were trailing by 21 points or something like that, and they couldn't run the football. This was a close football game. You had many opportunities to rush that football.
But, I mean, there was 29 rush attempts for Toronto, 10 for Edmonton. This has been a problem since game 1, where they cannot get their rushing game going. We saw the first, right? We said it at that point. We saw the first rushing first down on a first down.
Yeah, where you run for 10 yards. We think that was the first one of the season. We'd have to go back and double check.
Game 3, for goodness sake. What are we doing? Like, if you can't run the ball and mix it up and feed the ball, but, that's obviously a problem, and that's got to be addressed because you have to be able to keep that defense on their toes instead of just pinning their ears back. Secondly, the rushing defense, and particularly their off-tackle defense.
Yeah.
This is 2 weeks in a row where they have had long, over 40-yard rushes off the tackle.
That McMahon touchdown early, which made it 7-7 in that first quarter. He just got to the edge and he was gone.
And I mean, if we could roll camera here and show tape just to show how bad the defensive tackling angles were on that rush.
Like, isn't the job of a defensive tackle, I'll throw this to you, like, you can't let them get outside you. Keep them to the inside. No?
You're supposed to, but I mean, there's stunts where, and I mean, like, these are running plays that are designed to catch a defense in a particular style of defense, whether that's a zone or, so they've been getting caught. I mean, they got caught on a third down or a second down conversion where they were caught in man, and they picked up an easy crosser over under, but because they were in man, they got picked, and here you go. It's a 20-yard play. So second down, especially second and long, there was 4 times tonight where they were in 2nd and 8 or longer that they picked up first downs, and that's unacceptable. You cannot have that. Now, at the end of the game, they, despite DeBlanco's screw up on, I don't know what you're thinking, when the game is in the balance, it's a tie game, the opposing team is punting the ball back to you, and you have the audacity to think that you're going to make a difference. I mean, we saw Chris Jones on the replay just saying, hold your guy up. Hold him. That's all you're supposed to do. Do your job. Don't be a hero. So that was just frustrating. That was really selfish. But he's a rookie. He's a young guy. His first year in the CFL anyways. but inexcusable. Penalties. Penalties. Or lack thereof. I mean, we talked about it earlier, but that pass interference that they reviewed, by definition, that is illegal contact. That's not pass
we're going to that
interference.
one.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think they were. I don't think that was the intended receiver. I'll start by that.
It was the guy on the other side.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you cannot challenge illegal contact in the Canadian Football League. And I don't know. They got rid of the rule because coaches kept challenging and fishing for PIs and hoping there'd be an illegal contact. And they got rid of that.
On the screen.
And they said you could only focus on the one receiver now. I think that's the full rule. And that ball wasn't thrown to him. I don't care which of the two receivers you want to say that ball was intended for. It wasn't a catchable football in my eyes. And number 3 was that pass interference. If that was if that was the play, if that was the intended receiver, you were a secondary. Now maybe a little biased, but was that pass interference in your eyes?
Matty, I was a defensive back my whole career. You have as much right to your area, to your phone booth, as the offensive player. Just like you have as much right to that ball. You can fight for the ball. You can fight for your area. And when that receiver came out of his break, he directly impeded into the defensive back. That is not that's great defense. It's putting yourself in a way to stop. It's up to the receiver to then not impede into that. Who was the Elks defensive back there? It's irrelevant. But if he falls down in that situation, and that would be offensive pass interference in most cases. Instead, they review it, and looking at it logically, you don't even know who's.
Oh, that went to Ben Bynum.
You don't even know who's the intended receiver.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to read. So it. You know what's funny? I'm reading. Okay, here's the official play description of the CFL stats. Duke's pass incomplete deep middle to Polk, thrown to Edmonton 15 yards into the end zone. They challenged. Yeah. So and that's well. So I'm trying. So it says penalty Edmonton interference. Bynum got it. Toronto challenged the play, pass interference. Duke's pass incomplete dead middle to Neald. They changed who the receiver was. They have Polk here and they have Neald there.
Because nobody knows.
Which means you can't change that.
Wow, that's incriminating.
Yeah, they have. And then even on this, they have Polk here for incomplete on pass attempt, but they have Neald there. Even the stats guys didn't think that was going to Polk or anything like that. That's where I don't. That one was an awful call in my opinion. Whereas on the flip side, the penalty, the challenge that the Elks went for on Mayala, that is by rule. If you want to, as you go for challenges, pass interference, he got there before the ball.
Oh, that one was clear.
And then this is where the challenging is very interesting. It's like the Oilers yesterday with the offside. Was that really if it wasn't for challenges, was anyone going to be screaming offside for that one? Maybe some Oiler fans, but I think in the moment people are pretty fine. You're not catching that. But once you get to review, you got to go black and white, letter of the law. That was offside yesterday, by far. It wasn't close. He was offside now at that point. Tonight, that was pass interference. Now, if there was no reviews of that, would have I been upset that there was no call? Absolutely not. I would have thought that was great defense. But it has to be called. It has to be overturned. Whereas the Argos one, that to me is in no way, shape, or form should have been a penalty. But now if we're continuing with why the reasons the Elks lost, I go back to just what did we say as a storyline going into this, having to play a clean game, playing that 60 minutes. Lewis penalty, which led to the Argos touchdown to tie it at 14.
Yeah.
You had the dropped interception late in the first half that the Elks couldn't capitalize on. They couldn't get that interception. Late in the game, Kai Gray, he takes that 15-yard penalty for no reason. Pushes the Argos a little closer. Then gets
torched
beat
on the next play.
He won't want to be in film session for that one. He's not going to enjoy being called out on those ones. But then he gets beat. And then you got the DeBlanco penalty there, which, again, in that moment, it gave the Argos the ball back. The defense held. But then they got a punt and pinned the Elks deep. And that changed everything all because of that penalty. So, it goes back to this team shooting itself in a foot with penalties and just not being crisp. But the attention to details
Yeah.
They're just not there in also the most critical times of drives. There's a couple times today we thought, the Argos are done. The offense is going to have to punt or whatever. And nope, there comes the flag. There comes the extended drive.
Or second and long where they get the play. They get the first down. I mean, as a defensive coordinator, if you're keeping your opposing team to second and long, you're licking your chops because that is a hard position to be in for the opposing team's offensive coordinator. The defense, they let them down. There's no question. They let that team down tonight. And just when I thought they were coming back and they were getting it together, 2 straight 2-and-outs late in the game that forced the punt, aside from the fact of the Blancos' brain-dead penalty, they forced 2-and-outs late in the game. And then,
Well, to start the game.
Yeah. It was
2-and-outs.
Yeah, it was a great start.
It was 6 yards punt, negative 6 yards punt. A couple of sacks in there. Looked like they were going. The Elks scored a touchdown, 7-0. Okay, let's see what happens. And then the defense just couldn't get it done after that. They couldn't get the stops. And as we said earlier in the postgame show, it was 4 times tonight where the Edmonton Elks drove down the field and scored a touchdown. And then the very next possession for the Toronto Argonauts, they drove down the field and scored a touchdown.
No resolve. Right? No resolve by the defense. Dusty's in the nasty chat. I was wondering, I'm like, who's writing this? But he admitted it was him. Trey Ford won't throw for near as many yards as MBT. This isn't on the QB. This is on the defense and penalties, which were 2 of the biggest points that we brought up. The offense is better than it was with Ford last year. And I like Trey, but the offense isn't the issue here. Sorry, this is Dusty. I don't think you have to be sorry.
Never be sorry, Dusty, to be join the post-game show. This is yours, all of yours. No, and look, he's not wrong. This isn't on MB tonight. It's not on MBT. It's not on the offense.
Not tonight. It was not.
And it's a bigger picture story for Trey Ford. If we want to have a bigger global picture, which we had a little bit earlier, that's where that comes in. But
which I still think you're wrong about. But.
You'll learn, Jay, that I'm generally right. The thing is, though, I'm sorry, I can't sit here today as a Trey Ford fan, as probably the president of the Trey Ford fan club.
I think ground yourself. Yes.
I think I'm the president of the Trey Ford fan club.
Yeah.
I can't say it'd be the right move to go to him as the starting quarterback against BC. I can't.
Wow,
it's
pain
not.
You to admit
well,
that.
You can't. Based on the play of this, and even then, I went into this going, how much of a leash is there? A shorter leash or longer leash for McLeod Bethel-Thompson? I think after tonight's game, he gets a little more of that rope back going into BC. I'm not as quick to maybe going to Trey Ford. It'd be nice to see, we're only 3 games into this season. We've talked about the Dr. Jekyll and Hyde of MBT. Can he have 2 great games in a row, or are we going to have a season where it's good, bad, good, bad, good, bad type thing? And then that's going to change something. But no, this team can't go to Trey Ford right now because you might undo a lot of the damage not the damage, that's the wrong, sorry, I'm thinking I'm putting a different. You'd undo the good that has happened this season,
which has been a lot,
and there has been those improvements. The only problem is McLeod Bethel-Thompson was brought in to win football games, and there does come a point where maybe he's a really good quarterback, but just can't get it done, just good enough. And if that point comes, then you got to get to Trey Ford. That point to me will come the moment I'm saying fire Chris Jones. But I'm not saying fire Chris Jones today. I can't say fire Chris Jones today.
Why? You can say don't fire Chris Jones, but you could say bring Trey Ford in.
I'm saying that neither of those. I'm saying keep Chris Jones and you don't start Trey Ford.
The only thing you could logically say is that there's a problem with leadership at the top of this team, which is causing the penalties and the lack of...
So you're saying get rid of Chris Jones?
I'm saying if something must give, that would be the first thing I would do.
Okay, does something have to give going into Thursday? Well, you have to cough there. That's the worst time for me to throw to you. Okay, that's
no.
Don't. That's. But I'm saying that's. Okay. I'm talking about where my feelings are going. I agree.
Sorry,
I
misunderstood.
I don't think Chris Jones. There should be a change with Chris Jones going into BC.
No.
I also don't think you should be going to Trey Ford. The moment I say Chris Jones needs to be fired, it's probably also the moment I'm going to sit there and say, I've had enough with McLeod Bethel-Thompson. He's a fine quarterback, but it's time to now develop Trey Ford because he's not getting enough wins.
Yeah.
That's going to come, I think, hand in hand. But I understand why there's the anger towards Chris Jones. I understand the people saying fire him right now. I understand the people saying play Trey Ford. I get all that. I, though, myself, based on what I've seen through these 3 games, I can't say that yet. But the Chris Jones part, every week that goes by with the loss, it's getting closer. The exit is getting closer. The pink slip is maybe on the desk right now. You know,
it's
like
probably written already.
Well, I wouldn't go. I was going to say that maybe next week it's written, and then but that's where.
But
there does come a line, no matter what, that we could sit here and say the stats look good, the team looks better.
Yeah, but you can't.
But the wins at some point have to come.
You're right.
And that's where I will say today solidified it for me. I want to see this team against Ottawa. And I know that sounds really weird, but I think then all of a sudden there's a path to 4-4. Because I'm thinking I'm thinking a loss next week to BC. I'm just going to assume that that's the way it's going to. I see a path back to 4-4, and who knows what happens to the West the rest of the way. And Winnipeg's, they have 2 games after Labor Day against Winnipeg. Winnipeg might not be that good of a football team this year. The Calgary Stampeders, they don't scare me. I think they get the Stamps 3 times after Labor Day. I look at this schedule, they're getting out a lot of the tough games early. But the moment you lose one of those games or you have to pick them up, then I'm done.
Yeah. No, I agree with that sentiment for sure. It's just too bad they can't get it together at the same time. To be honest,
I don't want to go the first part. I don't agree, but Blair saying they need to announce the new owner and hire Bill Belichick. Bill is looking for a job, and you know what he's never done? Won the Grey Cup. Give him the keys.
Give him the keys. Calvin C. Can they expedite the
you want to know
sale?
something?
Yeah.
Tom Brady never won the Grey Cup.
That's true.
If he wants to one-up Tom Brady went out and won a Super Bowl without Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick, go win that Grey Cup without Tom Brady. Which one's more impressive? You tell me. Grey Cup is like the oldest professional trophy in North America.
Well, Calvin C. is kind of in agreement with Dusty. Dusty said there's no chance Jones gets fired before new ownership is in place. This is coming directly from the nasty chat.
I disagree on that.
Calvin says, can they expedite the sale of the team now? The new owners need to make these major decisions. We touched on that earlier in the year.
Yeah, we touched on it last week. And
Yeah.
I disagree with that in the sense that I think Rick Lawlisher knows and would be what you do in that situation is the board isn't as important anymore. The board almost takes a back seat. You talk to whoever. There's not a lot of owners left. They're down to a short list. They're down to 2 or 3 groups. That's it. You talk with them. You have them all. You have an honest chat with them as if they are somewhat going to be the owner, and you have those conversations with all of them. You have to have the conversations with all of them.
Sorry, I just got blasted in the face.
Yes, I smell it too.
Smells like the Snoop Dogg concert last night.
It's one of the 2 nights ago. I think that played into the ice last night. The ice was not good at Rogers. But it's like the fact that there's a concert, not everything else. But I think you have those conversations because I don't think you're going to rush a sale just for the sake of making major changes, because anyone coming in is going to take their time to make changes. And 2, I think you have to get something done before you give them the keys.
You don't think they already know who the buyers are?
Well, if you buyer is like the winner.
Yeah, who's got it?
Well, then you're talking to them.
I think that's locked up.
Well, if that's locked up, then you're just talking with them, going. I think if Rick Lawlisher and you go to them and you say look, I want to make a move on Chris Jones. I need to make this change for these reasons, as if he would have to go to everything he'd have to do with the board, but you just do with the new owners. And if those new owners say, you want to know something? Yeah, we're fine with that. Then you go to your board and say, the new owners want this, I'm doing this. The board probably won't have a say on it, and they'll be like, yeah, go ahead, and you do it. The only way it doesn't happen with this is if the new ownership does say straight up, no, do not make that change. That's the only way that I think it wouldn't happen before new ownership comes in. But you just talk with them. You have the conversations with them as if they are already the owners, and you make those moves.
In the Paris Jewelers inbox, Ian says, I still think with the fan base, if they go 0-4, they need to change Jones. That might be enough to get fans to slowly come back. AJ in Montreal says, yes, they could share the duties better. I'm sure he's talking about our discussion about how they could maybe create a package for Trey Ford to come in and relieve MBT at some times. I think because the games have been close-ish, they haven't gone to Ford. That's a good point.
But
I mean,
but they were winning in 14-15 with Chris Jones, and they still throw Jordan Lynch in games.
yeah.
Like, you could still, like, when you have a weapon like Trey Ford, why wouldn't you utilize that to a degree? Why would you keep a bullet out of your gun chamber?
It's a flow of the game where it's either predetermined. So
Predetermine it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's obviously not instilled in the offense. It's not a part of Jarius Jackson's offense. I really got to question the defense coordinator in
Jason
Shivers and Jarius Jackson. I'd, point all the fingers you want at Chris Jones, but these are the guys that they're in the meetings with. Chris Jones is overseeing all this. I get it. He's the boss. He makes the decisions. But I think they need to take a closer look at some of their defensive play calling, and especially with Jarius Jackson with this run game, that is it's effectively obsolete. There's nothing going on. They're averaging under 10 carries a game. That's bonkers. The normal average should be shy of 20, just shy of 20. They're averaging 10 or right around, it's just not acceptable.
Yeah, and when this O-line with Jarius Jackson's OC opened up the holes, Trey Ford was the starting quarterback. I could always bring it back to Trey with the offense.
Yeah, but it's a silly thing to do. I don't know why you keep doing that. Because, it's just for your self-purpose.
Well, I said this in the offseason that Trey Ford, when he was in that behind center, it opened up Kevin Brown, and his success came when Trey Ford was starting quarterback. Now you go back to a pocket passer, and Kevin Brown can't do it because the O-line isn't good enough maybe to open up those holes for the running back. And this goes back to Chris Jones as a general manager. He didn't improve the O-line this offseason. And why didn't he improve the O-line this offseason? Because he spent money on a quarterback, McLeod Bethel-Thompson, and then he traded Jake Serezna for Curly Gittens Jr., a receiver, to give him a receiver.
You don't think broadcaster.
I'm not Tommy.
You don't think the Elks are winning that trade right now? Curly Gittens Jr. for Jake Serezna?
I think the Elks
Come on.
Let me finish this.
I'm out of here.
The Elks were in a position where they
you
needed.
Can't disagree with yourself.
The Elks.
You know you're wrong.
The Elks were in a position last year where they needed to subtract a receiver. They did so by cutting Steven Dunbar, but then they added Curly Gittens Jr. They could have traded Jake Serezna to help fill the O-line, maybe.
Just listen to what I said.
They did win that trade. They won that trade. Jake Serezna today, by the way, somewhat quiet, but 3 tackles and a sack.
What'd Curly Gittens Jr. have?
52 yards and a touchdown. Wasn't over the 70-some yards that I had for the parlay. No, they've won that trade, but the construction of this team, what if you went and instead given up an asset like Jake Serezna?
I dropped my pen now,
You could go get that one. I dropped mine in the pregame show, but that's why I have a highlighter, and I went with the highlighter. We're both the same. We need a pen in our hand when we do the show. You could have went and got an offensive lineman, and maybe that opens up the holes for Kevin Brown.
What's wrong with the offensive line?
They're not opening up holes for a running back. You're talking about this running game.
They're not running the ball.
27 yards on 7 carries is what average, though? What is Kevin Brown's average this season?
I bet you it's under 3 yards.
Okay, that's not good enough.
Because they're not doing it.
Because they're also not creating the holes for Kevin Brown.
If you run the ball more, your average is going to go up. You're going to wear down the opposing defense. It's how offenses work.
We're seeing how this offensive line is struggling with the short yardage. They can't get short yardage again. They're struggling with short yardages again. We saw it last week a little bit. We saw it a little bit tonight. That's on the O-line. It needed to be improved. They didn't improve it. And that's the roster construction of this team hasn't been good enough in Christian. And that's the issue I have with that Curly Gittens Jr. trade. Have they won the trade straight up if you're looking player for player? Yes. But I think they could have went and got something different. That's what I'm saying. Okay, let's figure out what are 3 reasons the Elks lost today.
Well, rushing problem both ways.
Well, you're gonna just put those 2 in 1. Okay, that's number 1.
No,
I had run defense as 1, as number 1. That was the number 1.
Lack of stopping the run game. You could say that's 1.
Okay, I'm gonna go but I can't blame the offense for today. If I'm looking at 3 reasons the Elks lost, so I can't say that them not running the ball. They still put up 36 points.
Yeah. Then
how many more points could have we expected from this team? The number 2 is is that lack of attention to detail I will go with, which is the penalties we pointed out by the defense, extending drives, / making those mistakes where dropped interception at the end of the first half. Kai Gray just getting completely beat in that moment. That's going to be number 2 for me, the lack of attention to detail, I guess, defensively. I don't know what else to go with because I think those cover it completely. Because it's not special teams, it's not offense, it's all on the defense.
Well, then you go with Jarius Jackson. As it's not doing enough to make this a balanced offensive attack.
But they put up 36 points. You can, you need to get the 39 down, not more than 39.
Caven Shivers.
Sure, Jason Shivers, straight up.
Yeah. Because the off-tackle rushing issue is an issue. It's
sure.
Now
Okay, you want? I will go with that part of it. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Jason. So we're going to go run defense is 1.
Yep.
Lack of attention to detail on the D.
/ penalty.
/ that's the and I got to throw DeBlanco in there with the special teams.
Ugh.
But he's a defensive player, so that fills in. And then Jason Shivers.
Also Shivers' responsibility. DeBlanco.
Not on special teams.
I'm stretching.
Shivers, I will say, 2 out of 3 games, the defense isn't good enough. And we got a lot of comments at Chris Jones, defensive guru. Well, this season he's not the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
This is on Jason Shivers.
Yeah, I agree.
I got to put that. I've got to move away from Chris. I could rip Chris Jones for a lot with this team, but he's now not the DC, so I got to go after the right guy in this situation, and it is Jason Shivers.
And that's not one comment, not one iota of thought has been given to Shivers or Jarius Jackson, who I get it, they put up 36 points, but over 3 games, your rushing attack is non-existent, and that's going to get harder to create the longer the season goes on. No question.
Short week for the Elks. They've got the BC Lions. That's going to take place again in BC on Thursday. They never do well out in BC. It's going to be a short week. Lions get the extra night off, if you will. I don't know how much that day makes a difference. But for the Elks, just overall preparing, going from Saturday to Thursday, very quick turnaround. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. But based on what you've seen against Montreal and Toronto, I'm going to take Saskatchewan out of this. Week 1, a lot of things.
I think they could go into BC and win. I'm not
You have
kidding.
the confidence?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you?
I have more confidence than I would, but I don't have a lot of confidence, though.
But you're saying
it's
there's
higher,
a chance.
It's higher than it would have been last week, the week prior to that.
Okay, so that's encouraging.
Yeah.
That means the team's improving, which they are. They just don't have the wins to show for it.
Which is kind of important when it's a win-now season. Kind of important.
I'll give you that one. You know what else I learned tonight? Magic Mike is still a big draw. There's a Magic Mike show
here at
happening
Century
in the ballroom, and you could tell. You could tell. There was.
Hey, look at that! We're on the homepage of.
Oh, look at that!
Century.
Yeah,
there see the shows.
Definitely the people you would think would go to Magic Men World Tour.
Worldwide sensation, the Magic Men Australia are coming back your way.
Good
they're here. They are here.
They are here.
The most anticipated men are heating up the town. That's what makes it on and around here. They were voted Australia's best male dance group. So grab your girls and enjoy an epic girls' night out and be treated like a queen and experience a night of fun, laughter, and lots of eye candy. That show started at 7:30 here, so Jay and I were not able to go and have a girls' night out at the Magic Men World Tour.
Well, T-Roy showed up here, and he said that he was part of the tour. That's why he was here.
Yeah, he said he had his side gig.
Yeah,
was just over, and he had a head there.
And
yeah, it's a big deal still.
You know what else I learned?
Hey, if you're going to have fun, have fun.
Duck hunting is a serious
Oh, my
thing.
God. So at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, for those watching on YouTube, you do see the walls of TVs. We had the big TVs on the Edmonton Elks game. But then all of a sudden, Jay points out early second half?
Sportsman
Sportsman
Outdoors TV, I believe it was.
And we saw a bunch of hunters hunting ducks. And they got nice and close for the kill shots.
It was like you would see the duck exploding in midair in slow motion.
Yeah. And then on top of that.
Then they went to coyotes.
Then they went to coyotes. And, yeah.
Let's just say it was more graphic than I thought you would.
I think it was more graphic than Planet Earth when they show things. They did not hold back.
They did not. They did not pull any punches. These Ducks were getting killed, and these
the
Coyotes
Hunters
were
proud.
And they were like,
they were pumped about it. So yeah, it was hard to watch because the game was on the big ones, and then right next to it though was these Duck shootings, and it was hard to look away because there was a couple that was just like, whoa. Like block the TV, get that off. Quickly, just want to look into the nasty chat if we're missing anything before we head out. Babu Stash letting too many big plays allowed, no rushing game established are the reasons they lost. Also saying don't have a reason for third reason, and that's the big issues tonight. And 13 games for Trey Ford starting. Shaggy and St. Albert. Ford can practice all they want. You won't know if he is the one unless you actually play him. Whereas AJ in Montreal, if you're listening out in Montreal, thank you for tuning in, and it's 11 o'clock out there, so thank you for that. Yes, they could share the duties better, I think, because the games have been... Oh, you've already read that part. QBs don't play defense. I love Trey Ford the most, but I've been surprised by McLeod Bethel-Thompson. What do the Elks need to do to stop other offenses? And then Big Uke just coming in. As you're talking about the duck hunt, a bear just got shot behind you. That's content. Is there another... Oh, look at that. It's still on and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we've been watching. You could
death
really
on
see
the field,
that. That's a
death
pretty
on
good
the
camera right there.
TVs. There's dead elks everywhere.
Abutski saying in the nasty chat, I'm a diehard 46-year season ticket holder. The losing is wearing me down. I don't care who does it. This needs to turn around ASAP. And that's going to be the big point for this team. And to a degree, as this continues, if this continues, it's not eyes on Chris Jones for me anymore. It's all eyes on Rick Lawlisher. And this guy is around. He's sticking around to help transition to new ownership. But he might not be able to do that just yet without transitioning away from a GM coach and all of that. So we're going to find out. Just early thoughts on the BC Lions game.
Well, if there's anything that this team has shown me this year is that they can hang with any team that is put in front of them, really. I mean, obviously, I think it's going to be one of the biggest tests of the year. But
well, two of the losses are to teams with a combined 4-0 record.
Right. So, I mean, if they can hang tight, if they can be competitive and put up a fight, I mean, you'd have to say that's a win. The one thing you really don't want to have happen is have the blowout or But I honestly think they're ripe for the picking because, they're undefeated. They're probably going to, maybe this is a look-ahead game where they're already looking on to the next appointment and opponent and not really giving the Elks any credit. So there's no pressure on Edmonton here, oddly enough. I think as the team that's doing much better in the BC Lions and the team that is probably going to be quite heavily favored to win, I would imagine they're going to be favored by high single digits, maybe even the double digits. Then maybe just play your game. Do what you've been doing, but try get it together and on the same page at the same time, for goodness sake.
Correction, 5-0 combined record. Owls and they're actually. I'm disrespecting the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Yeah, they're playing.
The Edmonton
good.
Elks right now have lost to three teams who have a combined record of. Would that be 7-0?
Well, I mean, Toronto's 2-0.
Toronto's 2-0, Montreal's 3-0, and the Riders are 2-0. So we'll see what they do tomorrow. But the Elks have only lost to right now the top teams of the Canadian Football League. The three teams that are remaining undefeated right now, that's who the Elks have lost to. So if you're looking for that silver lining with this team, they've looked better, but they've also lost to the top. The schedule does get better from here. And that's why I don't think that we'll see a coaching change or anything like that coming up. Or quarterback change as well.
So weird to hear you say that.
Because you want to know, as much as I have my personal beliefs in what I want, you have to be objective. And you have to call it as it is. You have to call it as it is.
Yes.
As we said, the Edmonton Elks, they'll take on the BC Lions. That will take place next Thursday. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, which means the Green and Gold Kickoff Show live from right here, Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, where every day is game day. We'll get going at 7 o'clock. We'll be here for the postgame as well. Since it's a Thursday, you know what that means? Smoke, brisket, cheesesteak night. That is the daily special for
Let's
Thursday.
go.
Or you could get in on the game day special, which is a cheese and jalapeno smoky, as well as a 6 o'clocker lager is in cans during Elks games, and there's a game day draft. We had some 6 o'clocker lagers tonight here at Century Casino. Also, if you want to come here for the Oiler game on Monday, as it's Game 7, the Stanley Cup will be awarded. GCL Diesel Oil Stream pregame show, by the way, Tom Gazzola. And we'll have you fully covered on EST on Monday. It's going to be a big day, wild day here in Edmonton. Renee was saying from Century here that for yesterday's game, people were here as early as 2 o'clock, filling this place up. So if you're looking for a spot to come and you want to come to this wall of TVs and watch here at Century, you're going to want to come early on Monday. So keep it locked for that. Tomorrow on Edmonton Sports Talk, 8 a.m., it is the VIP Golf Show with Murray McCourt, Curtis Stock. Another chance to qualify for the $100,000 hole-in-one contest, which is presented by a Golf Town. And then Monday, I'm sure there might be a little bit of Elks conversation on EST on Monday. But naturally, Game 7.
Yeah.
Oilers, Panthers. Oilers have clawed back from down 3-0 to force this Game 7. We will see what happens. We've got you covered live right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, on TuneIn, on iHeartRadio, as well as those of you watching on YouTube. Jay, you're going to be on the Hangout with myself and Murray, and I think Tommy on Monday. Dusty, Eric, we're all in, as this is a big game. We've got you covered. But again, also, Elks game next Thursday live, Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge. Come watch the game with Jay and myself, and maybe T-Roy will be by. Who knows who will be by for that one. But we'd love to see you here. We also want to thank everyone for tuning in to the Green and Gold Postgame Show, for everyone jumping into the Nasty Chat, as well as the Paris Jewelers inbox. We really do appreciate it. The Edmonton Elks, they fall to the Toronto Argonauts 39-36. They drop to 0-3 on the season. On behalf of Jay, I'm Matt Iwanyk. Jay Milne, I'm Matt Iwanyk. Thanks for tuning in to the Green and Gold Post-Game Show. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night and ingest your weekend, and we'll chat with you on the Hangout on Monday.